Hello, this is the Growth League podcast. My name is Caleb Clark, and my mission for this show is pretty simple. It's to learn from marketers on how they're playing the great game of marketing leadership. Their ideas, experiences, perspective, wins and losses, and the playbook that they've established over time. Listen, there's more than one way to lead a marketing team and a marketing function. So if you're a VP, a CMO, director, or someone aspiring to fill one of these marketing leadership roles in the future, tune in to learn from some of the best in the business.
Nike were to make a hotel,
Okay.
you'd have a pretty good sense for what that might look like.
Right.
But if the Hyatt made a shoe, we have no freaking clue what that would look like. And that's the difference in brand. And I think that's generally the spirit of why Noble was so successful.
Here with my guest, Todd Meleney, who has a tremendous amount of experience as a marketing leader, currently as an advisor and a consultant, and supporting different brands in their journey. Most recently, being with Noble for 10 years in different positions. The last position being Chief Marketing Officer. So, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thanks for having me.
So give us a little bit of an understanding of your journey as a marketer and a marketing leader through Noble and now what you're doing.
Yeah, so I've really kind of been a serial entrepreneur, and that started with the first brand that I created when I was in college, which was a surfing brand that was in memory of a buddy of mine. I built the website on WordPress. I used Facebook for marketing when you needed to have a college ID to get into Facebook, and received orders by text message while I was in class, would pack them up underneath my dorm room, throw them in a trash bag, bring them down to the mail room, and ship them out to customers kind of around the country. And it was a small operation, but taught me a huge amount, and that pushed me down the entrepreneurial path of integrating into the startup community in Boston and New England, and meeting other people that kind of were wired like me. And that was through kind of the evolution and emergence of direct-to-consumer and social, and building brands that have a direct relationship to the person who's using the product, as opposed to kind of more traditional B2B or wholesale relationships. And I really cut my teeth in that space, and ultimately, after 4 or 5 kind of failed attempts at building something to scale, launched Noble, myself and 2 others, in January of 2015, and built that from, really the ground up, from working out of our homes to a garage to a warehouse to significant scale with global partnerships like the PGA Tour and the NFL and the CrossFit Games and athletes from all sports, and managing marketing from being a brand manager when we launched to the CMO, and managing real budgets, real dollars, real expectations, and a massive community that I prided myself on representing.
So talk about community a little bit, because that brand, of which I have multiple pairs of shoes and different gear. Tell me about how quickly and how significantly community formed around.
Yeah, so when we launched, we had no budget. We had bootstrapped the business, so there was no ad dollars to go around. All we had was organic content, storytelling, and community building. And for us, that meant showing up at local competitions and fitness events and building very modest, booths that were a couple $100 worth of plywood at Home Depot, assembling them ourselves, and telling the story of the brand and the product. And people bought into that, and bought into the idea of an alternative brand that was disruptive and that they could connect themselves to and root for as the underdog. And with that, created a really kind of communal momentum to the brand that we then leaned into and fostered and celebrated and encouraged through special events and digital communities and all sorts of kind of creative things to do when you don't have budget. You're forced to do it differently, and honestly, that was a competitive advantage.
I was gonna say, because when you have the budget, it's not a constraint that allows you to get as creative as you could, or to mobilize the community members as you normally would.
Right.
Was it do you feel that, because this is kind of some of the early days of fitness competitions, right? Like is it sort of a brand that's for the people, by the people type thing?
There was definitely a homegrown feel. Like we started in CrossFit and we grew beyond it, but we always prided ourselves on taking that community with us.
Right.
And the cool thing about CrossFit is it includes weightlifting, gymnastics, swimming, biking, endurance, and there are specialty communities for each one of those activities. So that people are doing CrossFit to be better at all of these other things, which then creates this organic kind of reach into these sub-communities of different activities. And Noble was able to grow through word of mouth in doing that, yeah.
So was it critical that despite it being the same products, you needed to communicate with these different communities wildly different from each other? Or was there a thread?
Yeah, I think the best brands really are strengthening the identity of their end user or their customer. And for us, we tried to build a mindset around what it meant to be noble. And that mindset applied to any number of different activities if you were dedicated and putting in the work and not making excuses. And therefore, it allowed us to be super consistent, actually, with who we were as a brand and how we showed up across these spaces.
So what does noble mean to you, to community members? How was it? What's the origination of even the name?
Yeah, so noble, it means no bullshit, and there's so many applications to that, and I think the beauty of that brand is everybody could make it their own.
Right.
But on a surface level, it means, there are no shortcuts, there's no excuses, no one's going to put in the work for you. And while all the big brands are marketing the air bubbles or springs in their shoes or new technology will make you run faster, jump higher, be stronger, we called bullshit on that if you're not willing to put in the work. And the product has to perform where you need it most, but it's really on you. And that's what it meant to me. Yeah,
and it means things, that has a meaning well beyond the arena or the fitness, but in being a dad, being a business partner,
totally.
It's applicable across different applications of life, right? So
absolutely.
It was a brand that people could touch and feel and be a part of.
Yeah.
So today, what do you get paid to do today?
Yeah, so today I'm working with emerging brands, mostly consumer goods in the health, wellness, fitness space, and trying to help them avoid some of the potholes that we hit in our growth, and guide them to some of the principles that allowed us to be super successful, and daydreaming about what to build next.
Because that entrepreneur is still in there, right?
No doubt, no doubt. You don't shake it.
No. What would you, slightly putting you on the spot, but what would you claim to be your superpower as a brand builder, marketing leader of people, men and women? Something that other folks would say, this is Todd.
I think getting people to believe in a vision and a kind of central goal, and in that, believing in themselves.
Right.
And encouraging and fostering people's kind of personal goals and who they want to be and where they want to be, and finding ways to line that up with the objective of the business or of the team is where you can have 1 + 1 + 1 = 6.
Right.
And we did that really, really well, and I think we can do it again.
Totally. When people feel compelled and they feel safe, you get different colors of that person that you otherwise would never have seen.
100%. I think just bringing people together to a central goal.
Okay. So as a business leader and as a marketing leader, and maybe you use the lens of kind of midway through building Noble, what are some of the things that scared you back then, or that worried you a little bit, or were you too busy to reflect on that kind of stuff?
Honestly, we were too freaking busy. We couldn't make enough product. There was insatiable passion and demand for what it meant, and there wasn't a lot of time to come up for air. And ultimately, that was part of why it was time for me to take a step forward and get some fresh air and try to reimagine who and what I want to do in the future. And And that's what I've been doing the last few months.
No time to feel.
No, frankly not.
Good.
But yeah, it was crazy, man.
What critical infrastructure is in place in your mind that allows Noble to live well beyond any of its founding members and,
Brand.
Okay.
Brand. That was the secret sauce. Frankly, like there wasn't a whole lot that was proprietary about what we did.
Okay.
There were times we in COVID we were selling coloring books and puzzles and all sorts of wacky things, and people were buying them. And one of the things I've heard recently was a quote by Seth Godin. He said, if Nike were to make a hotel,
okay,
you'd have a pretty good sense for what that might look like.
Right.
But if the Hyatt made a shoe, we have no freaking clue what that would look like. And that's the difference in brand. And I think that's generally the spirit of why Noble was so successful.
What takeaways do you have from this event, whether it be last year or this year? What does it mean to you? What do you take from this?
So the cult gathering is honestly, it was a pretty galvanizing moment in my career to be represented here and to be able to kind of take the stage with some of these other just iconic brand leaders. And I left the first year thinking, wow, these people think like me.
Right.
And I had never met other brand leaders who had that same kind of deep-rooted philosophy. And I think when you hear a lot of speakers throughout the week, people say the same thing. They say it a little different. The vocabulary might be a little bit different, but the message is the same. And that's really encouraging. And as a young marketer, as a young entrepreneur, I always kept a list of inspiration brands. Okay. And I would save them in my bookmarks on my Google Chrome. And, whether it was once a week or once a month, I'd bounce over to these brands and see what Yeti's up to, or Rogue, or Traeger, or whoever. And so many of the, and over time, as I felt like our brand surpassed them, right, I would remove them from my favorites.
Come on.
And I would only be checking in on the ones that I still aspired to. And so many of the brands that I still aspire to today are the ones that have been recognized at this event, which is just so inspiring and also encouraging to keep building and keep chasing.
That's all. Are there a lot of brands in that bookmark folder still, or are you always adding?
Yeah, there's probably consistently 6 to 10.
Okay. In your new role and your endeavors currently in supporting some of these other brand leaders, what do you have in place for yourself such that when you're driving home or doing whatever, you're kind of done doing work, how can you know with a high degree of certainty that you did a good job?
Great question. I mean, for me, I want to do work that I'm proud of.
Okay.
And like brand being somewhat amorphous, what makes you proud is somewhat amorphous, but that really is my barrier, kind of my barometer of did we do good work or not? And we now have, 10, 15 years of experience and a track record of success to know that our work quality creates results.
Right.
And if we're able to live up to our own standards, it will connect with the customer. Right. But that requires a high level of personal accountability.
Yeah.
And thus far, it's worked really well. Worked really well for the brands we're helping.
Are there certain traits or characteristics or criteria, if you will, of groups you'll work with now?
They have to be passionate leaders. There has to be passionate central leadership of the brand, or they just won't succeed. But also just kind of community brand first organizations.
Right.
And there's a lot of industries and companies that have other philosophies and strategies, and that's cool too, but what I subscribe to is brand first. Right. And that helps shape all of the other tactics that fall below the strategy.
Totally. And so that DNA needs to be there, otherwise there's
right.
nothing to grab onto from a traction standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. What would your philosophy or kind of thinking be on a brand that has already existed for X number of years, but there is nothing there of substance, and there is a fundamental opportunity based on maybe new leadership, or there's a new start opportunity? How do you establish brand foundation for an organization that already has had a brand for a period of time? So it's not a brand new startup. You don't have the benefit of blank slate.
Right.
You have some legacy that remains.
Well, for one, I would evaluate, is our product good enough?
Okay.
Because you cannot outmarket bad product.
Right.
Just fundamentally, nor do I want to market bad product. Right. And then I would really dig deep on the core values of the business and making sure those are present day.
Yeah.
And not necessarily legacy. Now, some of those may live on, and maybe all of them do, but maybe some of them need a refresh, and maybe some of them need a fresh start, and to be reimagined or looked at differently or adapted to the current customer or the current, moment in time, and then use those as the foundation of which you build the brand or rebuild the brand.
Right. And so would those same truths apply to a concept that has not established product market fit yet, like a brand new?
I think so. I mean, you have to have a core reason for being.
Right.
Like, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why should people care? Why do they believe?
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't believe and you can't answer that question, how the hell is anyone else going to answer it?
Don't waste any time.
Right, because what you're trying to do is have the customer tell your story for you. And if you don't know what it is, they won't either. So it starts internal, and then, it gravitates outward.
What role currently today with Noble does the customer play? Or like they are very active, mobilized element of the mix, or is it sort of like passive, user-generated content? What role do they play?
I would say that it should always be a customer-centric brand, and I hope that lives on into the future.
Anything you would do differently day one of Noble?
I think everything that happened there happened how it was supposed to, and led the brand and me to where we are now, and a lot of lessons there that I can learn from and apply to something new in the future. But if we were restarting Noble today and we did the exact same thing today 10 years later, it wouldn't be good enough. Everything has to be better now.
Okay.
We were one of very few brands challenging the Goliaths, and that created momentum as the underdog. But now there are many underdogs. The barrier of entry is lower as entrepreneurship becomes more accessible. And therefore, everything has to be great. It can't just be a good product or a good campaign. It has to all marry up and synergize in such a way that creates magic.
Interesting. When you talk about syncing up and integration, are there any common fault points where integration doesn't happen? Like, is it an operations thing? Is it where is the weakest link in the holistic fulfillment of the promise?
Yeah, I think there's left brain and right brain in organizations as they scale. There's part art, part science, part left brain, part right brain. And when those are not married up, when strategy doesn't meet creativity, when finance doesn't meet product, it creates a gap. And that's a brand gap that if you do not fill, the customer will fall into.
With their own story.
Correct. Yeah.
Which could be aligned with your vision, but very likely is not.
Or will impact your culture internally such that your efficiency goes down and you're unable to do your best work.
Gotcha. You have established a philosophy and a worldview of brand building and marketing over the years, but what do you do intentionally to sort of expand your own worldview and your inner, what do you do to sharpen your sword, if you will?
Great question. I mean, obviously events like this are pretty awesome to do that. Ironically, I don't really consider myself a marketer.
Okay.
I just consider myself like a human being, and I try to connect with people on real natural levels. And I think by connecting with people as much as you can from all different diverse backgrounds and experiences, you learn a lot, and that allows you to kind of help shape how you communicate with people that are from all different, backgrounds, and create stories and campaigns and messages that should be, widely exciting.
Yeah. Do you have any clarity on what's next in terms of the next thing to build? Do you have an industry interest? Do you have or a product service, or is it total tight-lipped? Yeah.
I've got a lot of interests. I got a lot of things that I'm excited about. I see a world of opportunity, and I look forward to sharing more on that down the road.
For you, what is the critical requirement to translate an idea into something that's a going concern? Is there anything in the early stages that can take idea from theory to reality?
There's a lot, you can have a kick-ass idea. Everyone's got $1 million idea. It can be design, it can be finance, it can be product market fit. Right. There's so many micro stepping stones that you have to go across to make an idea possible. Yeah. So it's just kind of taking them one at a time.
Yeah. Do you have any preference or suggestions on if you have a great idea and you're looking to build a founding team, couple, 2, 3 people, whatever? Is there anything you can offer in terms of how to think about architecting that initial team?
Yeah, you don't want an echo chamber.
Right.
So build a team with people that have different skills than you and different worldviews or philosophies than you. So that you can complement each other.
Right. Yeah. When you close your eyes, I don't know how often you think about Noble, but when you close your eyes and think about the next 5, 10 years, is there anything that comes into vivid color for you, whether or not it manifests besides the point, but where do you see the brand going?
I think Noble has the opportunity to be a iconic, timeless brand. And to do that, it will need to be really oriented around the customer, the community, and amazing product.
Yeah.
And I think if they do those things really well and stay focused, they're going to have a tremendous amount of success. And if they don't, then they'll hit some of the same challenges that a lot of high growth businesses do.
Yeah. You already talked a little bit about your approach to team building, but explain to me from your perspective what has made you successful beyond giving them platform to feel safe, participate. Anything else that you can suggest in terms of being a leader of people in the early stages and the mid stages? Is there anything that is common?
One thing for me is I've always believed if you're good enough, you're old enough. Or sorry, if you're good enough, you're old enough.
Because sometimes people say, "Oh, you don't have experience."
Totally, and there's some truth to that. But prove it. Show me that you can do it, and you deserve to be rewarded for that. And I was the best example of that in my career, and I've tried to lead that example for others. And just being honest and human. Treat people how you want to be treated. Treat people how you would want to be treated if you were their boss, or if they were your boss. And by doing that and admitting fault and admitting when things didn't work how you expected them to, it creates a level of humility and approachability that people buy into, but also require excellence and discipline and precision. And if that isn't met, hold people accountable. And I think people really respect leaders that also hold them accountable in addition to being there for them on a human level.
Right. Is there anything left remaining of the surfboard company, the surf? What was the details of the company again? And is there anything remains there, or was it the initial?
Just the memories and the experience. Yeah. Awesome. It was a surf brand in memory of my best friend who passed away. We made T-shirts, hats, board shorts, nothing crazy, but it was the first and really important stepping stone.
First thing that allowed you to scratch that itch a little bit. For entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
It screwed up a lot, or is it just smooth sailing the whole time? Either in that or in Noble. Kidding.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It was an epic first start. At 19 years old, you don't even know what you screwed up and you didn't, but it moved you forward, and then by moving forward, you're in a new place to reassess what's next.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your perspective, your philosophy on this, your journey. Everyone, Todd Meleney.